Over the past year or so, the world has seen many challenges. All of these have been exacerbated by, among other things, accelerating change, disruptive technology, and different approaches taken by countries to survive the devastating effects of the pandemic. The IRMSA risk report, which has become an influential must-read for key decision makers in the country, will be out shortly, and it's going to build on IRMSA's role as a catalyst for positive change in South Africa. And all of that is reflected in the theme for 2023, just one word: limitless. I'm joined now by Advocate Kevin Malunga. He's the former Deputy Public Protector and head of the Genesis Law School. Kevin, a very warm welcome to you. In your opinion, first of all, how has the local and global risk landscape and outlook changed over the past 12 months or so? It's really been topsy-turvy.
Good morning, Jeremy, and of course to the viewers whenever they do watch this. It's been mind-blowing. My view is that it changes from, it changes every hour. Whether on one level it is artificial intelligence, social media, Elon Musk and Twitter, energy, the war in Ukraine. There's just so much going on. And of course, my sense is that we are constantly on edge. COVID hasn't completely gone away. So I get a sense that we really must always have a plan B or an intervention. We must always be ready for an intervention. This interview, maybe 5-10 years ago, Jeremy, we probably would have met somewhere. We might have sat, we might have arranged to meet somewhere physically. And the founder of Zoom, as you will recall, when he started, no one took him seriously. But here we are on this platform as a result of these changes. So it's a sign that, for me, that the world is in a permanent state of flux, permanent state of renewal and moving. And for me, that I get a sense that the risk is the permanent sense of apprehension that we have.
Yet, Advocate Malunga, we can't, as risk managers, live with a permanent sense of apprehension. To your phrase that you've just used about being on edge, risk managers can't be on edge. They've got to be focused and they've got to be very clear, particularly when they're giving directives to boards of directors. So in your opinion, then, in this very difficult time that you've so eloquently outlined for us, what kind of mindset do risk managers need to adopt?
My number one priority, Jeremy, would be knowledge, which is where I think knowledge of coming from educational institutions such as the one I head, Genesis and others, is critical. And of course, knowledge that comes from having a structures in place that keep people up to date as risk managers, as in fact your entire workforce should always be on top of the ball in terms of what is out there. There are a number of things, for example, I always get the numbers wrong, Jeremy, excuse me. I think it was COP27, I think the last one. Yes. So there's always these numbers that are coming out there, net zero, the kind of energy compliance that organization need. And a lot of organizations now know that you can't use that old technology that you were using 15, 20 years ago. That won't work. And of course, in terms of let's say the climate change bill that's currently in place, organizations will have to have a certain level of compliance with international climate and environmental rules. So there's always a sense of knowing what needs to be known, if I can put it this way. You can't just be this person who is insisting strictly on the bottom line that, hey, we're making profits. It's not enough to make profits in an unethical way. And it's also very important to know, as I said, to know the correct people to do business with. I won't mention names. Jeremy, you are one of the most seasoned journalists in the country. You know all the bad stories. So I won't get into the bad story and name the names of the kind of, let's say, consulting firms that have found themselves wanting as far as assisting, whether it's a government department or a private sector entity that you probably don't want to do business with, right? Or if you want to do business with, you'd have to do some extra due diligence. So, as I said, for me, knowledge, you know, it sounds silly, but knowing what needs to be known is really a key priority for me. And of course, you find that you sometimes get a lot of these bookish appointees to things who just think in terms of, this person's got qualifications, and that's not enough. You know, a doctor who qualified in 1957, and I don't have anything against them. They're some of the best doctors. I've always had older doctors. They still need to know new methods of treatment. You know, the new technology. You know, how do you check certain things? So it's the same way with the kind of risk organizations face.
Critical, therefore, that risk managers constantly are aware of the operating environment and are equipping themselves, as you rightly say, with that knowledge. Kevin, when we introduced the risk report last year, the single biggest risk facing South Africa then was leadership. That is still, or deficiency in leadership, that is still a big issue as far as this country is concerned. Having said that, though, what do you now see as the top risks that are facing South Africa that particularly focus on achievement of strategy and performance?
I would still say the primary one would still be a decisive and active leadership. In other words, a leadership that doesn't just talk, but walks the talk. Because very often, you know, we find that there are all these position papers, white paper, this green paper, pink paper on that. There's always all this stuff, Jeremy. Some of it very well written, but nothing ever happens there, right? That's one thing. That's the one in my experience working in government and public protector and other sectors in South Africa and academia. My sense is that is leadership, and of course, tied to that, secondly, is a lack of implementation of policy directives and plans. Thirdly, energy, which is literally a result of the first two that we have mentioned. Of course, energy is a big challenge. As I was speaking to you right now, my power went off, but I've had to make plans with an inverter that makes sure that at least I'm not in the dark while speaking to you. But 90% of people can't do that. Even for me, it was a bit of quite an expense. So that is the challenge. And of course, the next one, I don't know how many I'm allowed to have, but the next one is corruption. Right? Corruption, which continues unabated, and of course, the impact of corrupt practices over the years is what is being reaped at this stage. For me, Jeremy, having assisted with investigations, including that of Eskom and other state-owned enterprises in my previous tenure, I can safely say that a lot of the excuses that are being given about the energy crisis and other problems, the potholes, etc., are not so much about resources, but about the corruption in leadership and failure to do the correct thing.
Right.
You recently had the Johannesburg Roads Agency, I think it's the head, allegedly with a fake qualification. I say allegedly because he still has a right of reply. But his qualifications are fake, but the potholes are real. And of course, and other dysfunctionality that is out there. And you know, for a very long time, there was what is known as a kakistocracy, ruled by the most unsuitable. You know, so you find people getting, you have a hairdresser getting a coal contract at ESCOM. And then, of course, how do you expect coal reserves to be? And I've got nothing against hairdressers, by the way. But the point is, those are not that's not the person who would optimally supply such a much needed resource. So, and that kind of situation, and of course, ultimately for me, tests on the rule of law. So the rest of the rule of law is currently tested, and I think it has held its own. And my sense is that that's probably South Africa's biggest arsenal. The fact that, and that has stopped it from becoming your so-called banana republic. The fact that at least there is a sense and understanding that you can go to court, you can't just do what you like and so forth, as happens in some failed states.
Kevin Malunga, I want to come back to your observations on corruption, if we can, which do remain a huge risk red flag in South Africa. As the former deputy public protector, someone who was in the belly of the beast, so to speak, do you think that corruption in this country has become too entrenched, that we are now have to live with it and factor it in instead of combating it?
Oh, absolutely. I think for a very long time, corruption became entrenched. There was an absence of consequences. I'll use an extreme example, which I'm not suggesting that things are done this way, because I'm a firm believer in the rule of law and innocent until proven guilty and proper sort of criminal justice system. But China, if we use that as an example, if you are caught as an official in China, you are done for. Well, they go all the way, probably, and possibly even execute you. But Singapore is another example which I used as a benchmark, and I led a team to try and learn from them. If someone is found either in the private sector or public sector as having done something, you know, even mildly corrupt sometimes, they are blacklisted for life, Jeremy, in terms of their ability to, you wouldn't be able to, no media house would touch you, you know, let's put it that way. And they would have a firm instruction that Jeremy Maggs cannot be touched because of his history. So that is not the case in this country. I think for a very long time, people who have been engaged in these things were actually rewarded, and they've been able to keep the gains from the improperly obtained assets. So you've got something such as the asset forfeiture unit, which I think is trying right now, but I guess a number of critical aspects of in the fight against corruption have not worked in the country. One of them being the ability to put people in jail for serious corrupt practices, and of course take away their assets. So there's been a lot of talk about the NPA. It's been a damp squib. It hasn't really, in terms of real high-profile corruption, it hasn't, come to the party in terms of getting convictions. So let's see how they do with the Zondo Commission, because the Zondo Commission has already spent over R1 billion.
In conclusion, Kevin Malunga, I said in my introduction that the IRMSA 2023 South Africa Risk Report has become a must-read for key decision makers in the country. It's building on the organization's role as a catalyst for positive change in South Africa. Very quickly, in your opinion, how important is this report? Why is it important?
This report goes to the first point I made, Jeremy, about what's at the apex of any risk person's arsenal. And of course, even people who are not involved in risk, which is why I believe that every government person, every private sector person must read this. Knowledge is key. There's that saying, knowledge is power. I don't remember who it's attributed to. I think it's Francis Bacon or someone like that. But knowledge definitely is power. And of course, I think there has to be a sense of avoiding the tick box exercise of governments. You know, there's a lot of malicious compliance in organizations. My boss wants this. I give what my boss wants, and I get my salary or my commission, and life goes on. We really also have to think about the impact of our actions or inactions in terms of risk. If you think about the recent gas tank explosion in Boksburg, I know there's a report that has come out, but there was certainly, that's a risk issue. Things burning up because there was an insufficient level of vigilance about height, about what happens in a situation like that when something like that. So if you use that as a metaphor for what really happens in other aspects, when you don't have a heightened sense of vigilance, the level of destruction that happens to institutions and to economies and so forth. Lately, a lot of people are not favoring South Africa as a result of some of the things we listed today for purposes of investment. It hasn't tanked completely, but my sense is that it's not a favorite of many people because people don't want to have a chicken business when the fridges don't work. So those are kind of things that I think people must look at the 2023 report and ask themselves, to what extent does my organization comply or infringe whatever theme is being listed in the report? And I think that way people will get optimal benefit from the 2023 report. Thank you.
Advocate Kevin Malunga, thank you very much indeed for a valuable contribution to the risk debate. Advocate Malunga is the former Deputy Public Protector. He now heads the Regenesis Business School. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.